Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Down to Business. Today we've got the great Tony Doyle, or Anthony Doyle, the formal name. He's the Chief Operating Officer at PKF, and a very interesting story as to how he ended up here, but we'll talk about that shortly. Welcome, Tony, first and foremost.
Thank you, Andrew. It's a pleasure to be here.
Tony is, you'll see, a very people person, big on business development, which is an absolute key part of any business. And I thought a very appropriate one to talk to our viewers or our listeners today. For those watching, as you can see, a very dapper gentleman. He's always looking the part. Puts me a bit to shame, but we'll get into it. I think, Tony, I mentioned your background. You know, you're a non-accountant.
Correct.
Managing a bunch of accountants and auditors and all those interesting roles. So give the viewers a bit of an understanding of, you know, not just your background at PKF or Lawlers before, but your background to how you've ended up here, I guess, today.
Okay. Managing people is challenging, Andrew, and I've managed a lot of people over the years. I won't say when I first started full-time work because it'll make me sound very old, but I started off as a banker with State Bank that ultimately became the Commonwealth. And my last role in State Bank was in business banking. Previously, I've been in the branch network. I was one of the youngest managers. I was manager of the State Bank of Paddington. I'll come back to a story on the State Bank of Paddington later. Then I went into business banking, and I had a portfolio of customers, as we call them. In accounting, we like to call them clients. In the bank, I was taught, you have customers in a bank. Professional services firms have clients. So I had a wide range of customers, and one of them was a restaurant group, a very large restaurant group, big restaurants in Sydney. I'll say we because I ended up there. They had 800, about 2,000 seats through three restaurants down at Campbell's Cove, and that was a customer I'd go and see on a weekly basis because they had some heavy borrowings, and we always had our meetings at about 12, finished by 1, and we'd have a nice lunch with the CFO. And he eventually said one day, "You should come and work for us." I said, "When do I start?" So I started at Restaurants to the Rocks in about 1997, and I was there for 4.5 years. It was a very good experience, but being under the one ownership, there were things that just weren't being done properly, and I got a bit antsy. So talking about the BD bent, so I was in the finance team, but we really had a good product. So all of my former colleagues, if they had a lunch or dinner or a wedding or anything they were organising, I kept in contact with them. Come and see me. I'll make sure you get a good deal, get you the best tables and what have you. So I had all these people that were in my network to our restaurants. So I broadened that and started a dinner with a group of people, and it was, you got a discounted rate. We'll have this fantastic dinner once a quarter, but to come to the dinner, you have to bring someone with you who then I want to utilise our restaurants. And then, you know, the spiel was, you're having a great night, we're all friends, but when you want to have a birthday or whatever celebration or just a nice dinner, lunch or dinner with, let me know and I'll organise it for you. So that built, so we had I can organise this. Sherwin was his name, great fellow. So I had that BD bent coming from the bank because we had to put work on, and I just ran with a network of people at the restaurants.
I think just on that point, two of the key ones there, you know, just to really highlight network.
Yes.
You know, a lot of people you have acquaintances, have contacts, but really, do you have a network that you actually, I guess, leverage? And the second one, you were quite proactive rather than waiting to come in. It was quite the opposite, yes. Reaching out. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah, getting on the front foot. And on networks, I think everyone has a network. They just mightn't be aware of it. So our young Jaspers here at the firm, they've all been to school, they've all been to uni doing CA. They are people in their networks, and often it is the easy wins. You don't have to sit and go, "Oh, who's someone I could target?" As you're getting experience, go the easy wins. Someone that's already in your network. Hey, we went to school. Someone that you're just not going to ring an old school buddy, but someone you're still in contact with. Hey, I'm at PKF now, we're doing this, what are you doing? It might be worthwhile going and have a cup of tea. You've got to kiss a few frogs, but everyone already has a network, and you use the word leverage, and you just got to leverage it.
And I think it's something we see all the time in business. And as you said, probably a lot of less experienced younger people coming through. I think there's got to be this, magic solution, or where you've got to have the biggest and the best, or, realistically, I think that's a key point. Just don't overthink it.
Yeah. No one will ever accuse me of overthinking, that's for sure. So just sorry if this history lesson's going too long. Then at this dinner I organised, so I'd had Jack at the restaurants, and I said, there won't be, with the Petty Falls and coffee tonight, you'll all get a copy of my CV. And one of the guests at that dinner was John Vuris, who was a partner of Vuris and Bell with Bob Bell, who's our managing director, rang me, I think, on the Monday and said, I like the cut of your jib, I've got a job for you. So I then moved to Vuris and Bell. I was called, I think, as the business development manager. And being a small firm, there was about 20 of us, it was roll the sleeves up. So I brought to that firm a lot of my network. So the bankers that I worked with, people that I played rugby league with that were valuers and lawyers, got them involved in that network, and of course ran with the network that was already at Vuris and Bell. And that worked. And then we had the great opportunity where Lawler Partners came knocking on our door, and John and Bob said this is great for the firm. So I went from working for a 20-person firm to what that then became 100 odd, and then we've grown as part of the PKF brand to Newcastle's got circa 150. Yeah,
plus with other businesses,
and Sydney the same. So a lot of the lessons that I've learned over the years, and even a lot of the things I've done, we still do at this bigger firm. We just do them a little bit differently, and probably with a little bit more science about it. We try not to be too ad hoc.
And I think just on that, again, in line with that proactivity, I think you're right. A lot of people think, whether it be people management, business development, anything around people and relationships, you're just either good at it or you're not, or you've got the gift of the gab. And I mean, that irks me, because I think people that are good at it, how much intention goes into these sort of things.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily the gift of the gab, as you say. You need to have a bit of a plan. What's important at PKF and makes someone like me? So I've got a young woman that works for me, Jamea Markey, who works our networks with me. When we meet people and we're talking about, and we promote all of firm, but there may be someone that we're going to talk to, and it's going to be business recovery and insolvency related, or it might be tax related. We take comfort in the fact that if an opportunity comes out of it, we've got the right specialists to handle it. You could be the best BD person in the world, the best salesman in the world, but if you haven't got a decent product, you're going to go broke. We've got not only very good business service offerings, we've got very good professionals. And not only, what's important about our firm is not only are they quality professionals, we've got quality people. And we deal with a large referral network, and part of the thing that people have told me, and we feel the same, they like working with us and we like working with them. And that really does help.
That's a good point. I think, we keep talking about people. So as we said, in your role, we just mentioned circa sort of 300 people in the business. Obviously, you're not having meetings with everyone, etc. But what is your approach to people, and how you keep a finger on the pulse, I guess? And does it change whether it's internal with employees or external with other relationships?
Good question, and it doesn't change. And one of the things I do, chain to my desk. So I do. I come up. I think it's a great initiative from Bob. At least once a month. And we were up here last week, I'm up here again today, that I work the floor. So when I am in Newcastle, I go around and say hello to all the business units. I try to remember everyone's name. in Sydney on a day-to-day basis when I'm there. I walk the floor, go around and say good morning to everyone. How you going? All okay? Just check in. Just be that visible presence. And I am there to make sure that everything is working on the floor. Whether we've got 5 meeting rooms and we've got a meeting that's come unannounced, okay. And I just chime in and help shuffle the meeting rooms. So having that presence just helps to make sure things go smoothly. And also, if someone's got a problem, let me know, and let's see if we can fix it. It's the same thing with our external network. Just keeping in touch and making sure PKF is front of mind, because let's face it, our referral network have a lot of people outside of PKF talking to them, and you just might, and quite often we're told, oh, this is very timely. I'm so glad you've got in touch because we've got a matter that we think could come your way. So you've got to maintain a discipline, and you've also got to be patient and brave, because not everyone's going to have a referral for you straight away. You've got to understand that relationships take a while, and don't give up, but you've got to have a plan. So I'm not big on IT.
Wouldn't know it.
No. But we have, so Jamar and I just use a CRM in Teams, and that works really well. I get a pop-up a couple of times a week reminding me that I should have seen so-and-so or such and such a business, and we utilise that. And it's a nice little tool that I like to use, and I think CRMs...
So a CRM being a customer relationship management tool?
Yeah, and it just pops up on my screen, and it keeps us honest as well. There's a discipline to it that, hey, I haven't seen Joe Crosby for a while. That's popped up. I better go and see Joe and have a cup of tea. And the world has changed. Back when I was a young lad, it was somewhat about boozy lunches and it was hard work. But now you do need to have lunches and dinners, but a lot of it is everyone's busy. So it's those touch points by a cup of tea meeting in the morning, or a breakfast meeting, or an afternoon cup of tea or coffee. I think they really work well. You've still got to have the odd lunch and dinner. Yes, that still has its place, but you can have a great meeting. And what I'm very big on, you meet with someone and then it's the follow-up. Even if it's just that initial email the next day, but you just can't think to yourself, that was a really good meeting, and then move on. You've got to maintain the rage with that group of people or that firm you're talking to, and that's a constant we do, and that's why that CRM is handy. Hey, you've got to contact this person or that firm.
Yeah, because I mean, as we said, look, it doesn't matter how great a memory you've got so much going on. You need to actually get some discipline, as you said, which I like that word, but be intentional about your follow-ups, and not to a point where you're a pest, but make sure that you have that regularity and consistency.
Yes, I have to sometimes think, okay, Anthony, don't push too hard, or you've done enough there, but be patient. And then there are other times where you've got to be brave and say, well, come on, Andrew, there's no such thing as a free cup of tea. Give us something. Come on. We're a good firm. You're a good firm. Let's do some work together. So you've got to have, if you have a strong relationship with someone, you can speak frankly, and people know that's what it's about. People like to get referrals from us, and we like to get working. We've got it to maintain our firm, keep all our really great accountants busy. Work has to come in. And sometimes you've got to say, hey, send us a job.
Yeah. As you can see, Tony likes tea. So you interchange that with whatever you choose. But I think the key thing there for me in what I've learned over the years, and you would attest this, a lot of people that don't do this very well haven't probably got that boldness about them to ask that question. And all they end up with is a lot of wasted time, a lot of free meals that they're generally paying for, or coffees or teas, whatever it may be, events, you know, where they need to be sitting there thinking, what's my outcome I want here, and am I prepared to ask for the outcome?
Yeah, spot on. And that people appreciate that. People are time poor, so with you, they know there's a reason. And where the important thing for us is the reciprocal relationships. Like we're a big firm in Newcastle and a big firm in Sydney with a number of business units, with a number of clients. Our firm, we we find solutions to solve our clients' problems, or we find solutions to solve the problems that our referrers' clients are having. And that's what we do. So that's not too hard to sell. But we've got what the beauty is, if I go back to when we were Virus and Bell and even Lawler Partners, we've now got such a bigger suite of services. Even our business advisory, your team and Nick Fauslon's teams have grown. We've got bigger tax teams, corporate finance. We've got BRI, liquidators and bankruptcy trustees. So we've got that breadth of services that there wouldn't be too many people we catch up with that wouldn't think, hey, yes, I could utilise PKF.
Yeah, I think that's and the important thing you just raised there is, but do you actually tell the market about your services? You know, I think we've gone pretty good at that, but there's many businesses that just assume the market knows what they are or what they do. And I mean, if you take PKF, they're accountants. Well, there's a hell of a lot more than accounting that happens in the businesses. But unless you educate people, and that could be where the marketing fits in, it's often missed.
Yeah, and I think we've beefed up our marketing team, and I think that the big play there is certainly the use of social media these days with the LinkedIn's and Facebooks, and the EDMs that go out, and what are they? Electronic direct messaging, I think it might be. They are constant to our network and our clients, and I think they work really well.
So you've mentioned relationships quite a bit. You know, let's break that down. What does relationships mean to you? And I guess specifically then in a business sense.
Well, relationships to me are individuals that I get on well with, who we can then have the dance and broaden that relationship on the business front. And I think the way we do that is making people comfortable with you as an individual and making them comfortable with whoever you may go to a meeting with, whether it's so you're meeting someone and you know there's going to be a tax event and you take someone from the tax team along, but most of the time early doors, Jamar and I work as a team. We make people feel comfortable with us, and then if they're comfortable with us, there's a good bet they're going to be comfortable with our firm. And why is it a relationship? Because it's not just a one-off. So back to the discipline of our team's CRM, we don't just have a meeting with someone and then expect a job to come through. We have a meeting, we'll have maybe it might be just then an email at some stage, or invite them to an event, or invite them to another coffee, tea, or even a beer or a lunch, but maintaining it so the relationship has got to evolve. And what's important to us and important to the people we have relationships with, that it's a two-way street.
Yeah. That was one of the pieces I was going to say, is a lot of people that sit there and go, I haven't got anything, or you haven't given me anything, but they often forget, well, relationships are two-way.
Yeah, and we at PKF support those that support us. And I think those supporters have the same ethos.
Yeah, and I think a good way there, and just maybe a tip for businesses or business owners, is Tony will often look to see where someone has supported us, and not just directly from that, specialty area, say we've got to get something back, but literally go from a firm basis and go, well, how can we support them? So you're using all of your, I guess, internal network to really, give back to those that supported you.
My word. It's a big part of what we do.
That's great. So I guess we'll keep on that business development train then. not a lot of people, in all honesty, are graded. I mean, that may be fear, that may be, as you said before, the boldness or non-preparedness. I think you've nailed it where you say relationships are the basis of, a lot of this sort of stuff. But obviously there comes structure. As I said, it's preparation. It's you mentioned follow-up. So talk structurally what some of the things that maybe you haven't mentioned that get put in play to help, whether it be with event planning or whether it be with general relationships or business development.
Well, we have, particularly in the Sydney office, and we're broadening things in Newcastle, we have a few, showcase events, and a lot of it rolls out of that you're going through a guest list and putting a guest list together. And I think what we do, just because you're on an event list, doesn't mean you'll always be on it. So again, that's a bit of that bravery. You got to go, hang on, old mate's just having a lend here, just likes having a free sausage sizzle and a beer. So, and then look at it and go, okay, who should be coming to our events or whatever it is? So a lot of it starts off with that, and then it's, okay, what's happening at the moment? So, for example, we've got some, there's interest rate rises, ATO activity, time into our BRI team. And what often will come out of that, we'll be talking about BRI, and it'll come out to be a tax referral or a corporate finance referral. So you have to be fluid. So as much as we like to be a bit structured, okay, that's our events and then our follow-ups, we've got to be able to move quickly and have a conversation, move to tax, even though it started off on BRI. About the structure, look, nothing's ever set in stone. It is making sure, what we do is make sure we're just speaking to the right people. So it's, okay, keeping an eye on who's being mentioned in dispatches, what areas of business might be struggling or going well. Okay, who do we know that plays in that space? Let's get in contact and see if we can get it in there. So it's oftentimes just sitting back and doing a bit of research. What's happening in the market? Who might be the lawyers that are working? Construction's being mentioned a lot at the moment. Are there any construction specialists we need to be talking to? I know we're talking a lot about Section 100A on the tax front. Okay, who needs to know about that? Probably some accountants in our network could benefit from what we call our OPRAM, which is our professional advisors network. Okay, let's run an OPRAM breakfast. So just don't have everything set in stone, being able to move quickly. And I think that's what I like about what we do, that it keeps us all interested because we're fluid.
Yeah, good. And I think you mentioned there about, a key one when you said about they mightn't be always on the list, and it comes back to what I said before about, whether it be expenses that you're incurring for, BD that may not be working. Like, at the end of the day, you're running a business and you got to look at return on investment. Yeah. So I guess it's having that checks and balances and make sure you're measuring what that success looks like.
Yeah, and sometimes it is hard to measure. And I mentioned earlier, I think I've mentioned you've got to be brave and you've got to be patient. And there'll be some people that someone might say, I see you having regular cup of teas with so-and-so. What's come through? Well, nothing as yet, but it will. They're also well regarded in the marketplace, so it doesn't hurt having someone to be on our side. And if they're talking out in their networks and PKF gets a positive mention, sometimes that's pretty good. And it might end up being a referral, not directly from them, but ultimately was from them because of someone they spoke to. So just mindful of that you can't get, because I saw one of our partners once get one of our lawyers in a headlock on one of our dues and pretended to punch them and said, when are you going to send us a job? Like, come on, that's, you can be frank and say, come on, but you need to have that relationship first if you haven't got that relationship and you're giving it that, well, it's just going to fall apart.
Yeah, yeah. And for me, I think the other thing I was allude to there, when you talk about what are you trying to sell, you know, like a stat I read recently was all about, I guess, socials, and when you're telling someone something and you know, someone has to see, it used to be someone had to see something up to 9 times before it really sunk in. Now with all the distractions of technology and, you know, all the social media and all that sort of stuff, it's now they're saying it's 15 to 18 times someone needs to see something before it sinks in. And that's just to get an idea, let alone what you're talking about, relationships, which are, people are guarded and there's got to be trust there.
Yeah.
So then that goes into what you're trying to sell. I think too many inexperienced people or people that aren't as successful in this space try and go for the whole kitchen sink up front and then get disappointed when they don't get it, and they might have only had one meeting or one contact point. You know, what's your view as to when you go to a meeting or have an interaction, what are you trying to sell?
Yeah. That's an interesting point, because what we try and do is we're not trying to sell initially. BD, you've got to be a good listener. And I think if you're a good listener, the rest will flow. So what we try to do, we want to hear what the person you're meeting with, what are you up to, what are you seeing, and then you can get the conversation flowing where then we can chime in and say, oh, that's interesting. Yes, tax is an issue or interest rates are an issue, and you can start talking about some of our services, but initially to people watching this or listening to this now will probably laugh because people love talking about themselves. So you want to get people talking and you've got to listen, not talk over them, let them get, you know, and ask questions of them, and that's where the sell then can come about. And I said a couple of times earlier where it might be a meeting where you're thinking it's going to be a business recovery and insolvency chat, and you end up talking about a tax or a business advisory or an audit opportunity. So that comes out of asking questions and listening.
Yeah.
So and then we can sell the services. But what's important, what we do at our firm is, and it's not just selling the services. We've got great people. So we're selling our professionalism and our quality practitioners.
Yeah, I think a man we both know and used to work with us in John Vamos used to have the coffee test. And so if we're meeting and I'm the listener, I've got to make sure I've got an empty cup of coffee and you've got a full cold cup of coffee, because it must mean that you've been doing all the talking. And it'd be a real interesting one for people to consider whether they whether they get that.
Yeah, I agree with that, and it takes a bit of discipline, because you want to talk about what we do, but you've got to let the other person get their points to you, because that enables you then to chime in. Yeah,
and I think a good way of summarising, again, in the selling part is, to me, you're just trying to sell the next step, whatever that step is. It could be another meeting, it could be a follow-up, it could be, yes, there is a job, or, but trying to bite off too much, especially if the relationship's not there, or you haven't found the need, or they don't have an opportunity, or you're not playing that two-way street game. We've just got to worry about where you're at in the process.
Yeah.
Well, mate, we covered a fair bit there. I might just try and wrap some of that up. But, one of the key parts you said up front is all about network, and don't overthink your network. Be proactive as opposed to waiting for it. I think that's a good one. We all call or talk to or email a lot of people every day, but it's generally because there's something to talk about. What are you doing that's proactive when there's nothing to follow up about, relationships are everything. You mentioned it's about people liking each other, and to do that you've got to obviously share information. And the other one was it's two-way street, absolutely two-way street. I like with your people aspect, whether it was internal or external, you're saying remembering names, small little one that, I think there's some studies on that, how better reaction you get if you remember someone's name, and being visible. Yeah. Being visible around your workplace, being there front of mind. I think that's the same thing for business development as well. No matter how good your memory is, record the info, and it's not just for you, it's for your business, so make sure it's multiple people can access it. Real important point you said around you need to ask. You need to be bold. You know, if people don't know why they're meeting, it could just be a waste of time.
Yeah.
You know, measure. You know, make sure you're getting somewhere, and if you investing in a relationship that's really not producing and probably never will, you might need to think about that and take them off your invite list.
Move on and find a new relationship.
Yep. You know, as you said, you've got some key planning aspects, but being very agile around your planning. Very good point. And probably one to close out on, mate, BD is about listening. I like that one, and I think so many people who have had negative experience with selling or business development, I would say that's totally opposite. So really good points, and I've probably missed plenty, but, you know, a key part of business for me, no matter how good a product you've got, no matter how good a service you've got, if you can't sell it, it doesn't mean much. You know, we need to keep the economies working and the wheels turning. So BD is a big part. But, you know, Tony, I think, you know, another good aspect to point out is having play to your strengths. You don't just have, in our case, accountants running different parts of accounting firms. Your role is people and relationships, and I think you do that exceptionally well. So I guess from the banker to the restaurateur wannabe to the now COO of PKF, mate, you do it really well. Thanks for sharing your points, and thanks for joining us in Down to Business.
Thank you, Andrew, and I hope your listeners and watchers got a bit of value out of today.
Cheers, mate.
Thanks.
Till next time.